Right now, an AI can write a flawless, perfectly optimized resume for you in, like, exactly 5 seconds.
Oh, easily. Less, probably.
Right. And it will make you sound like an absolute visionary leader. But the thing is, it will also make your totally unqualified neighbor sound like a visionary leader.
Exactly.
So if literally everyone suddenly sounds like a visionary, how do you actually prove you can do the job? Welcome to today's deep dive. We are so thrilled to have you here with us.
Yeah, so glad you could tune in.
Today, we are looking at a really fascinating manuscript draft, and it's titled What Comes After the Resume. Our mission today is to figure out how we survive and really how we prove our professional worth in a world where the traditional resume has essentially been demoted. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, to understand that demotion, we really need to look at the mechanics of hiring because historically, hiring has always relied on signals. I mean, a hiring manager doesn't actually know you, right?
No, of course not.
Okay.
You just have a piece of paper.
Exactly. They don't know your work ethic under pressure or, your judgment in a crisis. Because they can't see those things directly, they look for proxies. So a college degree is a signal. A job title like director of operations is a signal.
Even just a tightly written bullet point is a signal.
Right. And for decades, those signals were relatively stable, mostly because they required actual time, money, or effort to acquire. But today, we are moving rapidly from a signal problem to an evidence problem.
Because those signals are suddenly, like, incredibly cheap to manufacture.
Mhm.
I mean, if I can generate a perfectly formatted cover letter and a hyper-optimized LinkedIn profile while I'm just waiting for my coffee, the signal itself loses its meaning completely.
Right, it bottoms out.
We end up in this system that is incredibly rich in signals, but just totally starved of trust.
Yeah, and that collapse of trust creates a massive dilemma for you as a worker because your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your portfolio, all these things make up your professional surface, as the source calls it. But this surface is just failing us right now.
It's totally breaking down.
Employers are becoming intensely suspicious of the surface because they know exactly how easily it can be manipulated.
You know, it reminds me of watching a movie trailer. Usually you expect a trailer to be a pretty accurate representation of the film, like a little flashier, sure, the explosions are louder, the jokes are punchier, but fundamentally, it's the same movie.
Right. You know what you're buying a ticket for.
Exactly. But imagine if everybody suddenly had this magic button that could turn their, I don't know, shaky smartphone video of a backyard barbecue into a trailer that looked exactly like a $100 million Hollywood blockbuster.
That's a great analogy.
The trailer no longer tells you anything about the actual movie you're going to pay to see. But, and I do want to introduce a little bit of friction here, if AI is helping people who traditionally struggle with corporate jargon actually sound better, shouldn't we celebrate that?
I mean, yes, on one level.
Like, think about a veteran transitioning to civilian life. If an AI tool helps them translate their military experience into language a corporate recruiter understands, that feels like a massive win, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is a win for the undertranslated. I mean, AI is an incredible bridge for people who possess deep experience, but perhaps lack the very specific, often exclusionary vocabulary of the corporate system they're trying to enter.
Right.
But what's fascinating here is that when professional language becomes frictionless for everyone, polished language simply cannot carry weight anymore. It just becomes an arms race.
The buzzwords just cancel each other out. Like everyone is a synergizing thought leader now.
Yes, exactly. And that arms race creates a very quiet but incredibly dangerous side effect for the individual worker, which the source calls a state of professional amnesia.
Professional amnesia. Wow. That is a heavy concept. How does that actually happen to someone?
Well, it happens when you basically outsource the interpretation of your own career to an algorithm. So you feed a machine a few rough thoughts about a project you finished, and it spits back this incredibly clean, executive-sounding narrative.
And it sounds amazing.
Right. The sentence sounds so impressive that you just accept it as your story. But in accepting that generated polish, you lose the messy, vital truth of what actually happened.
Because clean professional language always prefers results over reality.
Exactly. But the mess, the constraints you faced, the absolute lack of resources, the failures you recovered from that mess is where the actual truth of your capability lives.
The AI just flattens the specificity right out of our lives. I mean, think about a caregiver who has spent 5 years managing intense family medical crises.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
They are coordinating doctors, fighting with insurance companies, handling really complex budgets under extreme emotional stress. That is profoundly deep human experience.
Yeah.
But if they run that through an AI to build a resume, it flattens all that rich texture into a generic bullet point like adaptable problem solver.
Yeah, it completely erases the humanity of it. Or consider a founder whose startup failed. They worked relentlessly, they nearly went bankrupt, but they learned profound, agonizing lessons about market reality, cash flow, financial discipline.
Stuff you only learn the hard way.
Exactly. But AI takes that intensely educational failure and just sands it down into entrepreneurial self-starter.
It completely erases the grit. And because of this flattening, you end up fighting the surface war.
Yeah.
You have candidates generating more and more polished surfaces just to get past the initial screen. And on the other side, you have highly suspicious employers deploying automated assessments, hidden scoring systems, and complex filters just to cut through the polish.
Everyone is shouting, but nobody is actually communicating.
Right. So if this AI arms race is just producing perfectly polished illusions, the only way a hiring manager will ever trust a candidate again is if they can see the raw materials behind the polish. But how do we show them the raw materials without just totally drowning them in data?
We have to move down a layer. Beneath the highly edited surface of the resume, we need to build a worker-owned evidence layer. And the foundational component of that architecture is what's called the private evidence vault.
Okay, wait. I have to be honest and play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
When I hear private evidence vault, my immediate thought is that this sounds totally exhausting.
Right.
Am I supposed to hoard every single email, every nice compliment I get in a Slack channel, every Tuesday morning meeting note I've ever taken, just in case I get laid off in 3 years?
No, definitely not.
Because I don't want to live my daily life constantly preparing for a professional trial, you know?
You absolutely shouldn't live that way. A vault is not a hoard. It is not an obsessive, indiscriminate collection of every scrap of data. It is a space for curated memory.
Okay.
Curated.
Right. The goal is to consciously capture record moments while you are living them well before a crisis ever hits.
Because trying to remember what you actually accomplished 3 years ago while you are actively panicking about a sudden layoff is literally the worst possible time to try and construct a truthful professional identity.
Oh, absolutely. Urgency totally distorts memory. It makes us grasp at whatever sounds good in the moment.
Yeah.
So what actually belongs in this curated vault? It's not just your formal credentials.
Like degrees and stuff. Right. A degree or a professional certificate proves a fact that you completed a specific set of requirements, but it doesn't prove meaning. It doesn't prove you can apply that knowledge when everything goes horribly wrong. The primary purpose of the vault is preserving context.
Context completely changes the narrative. Like, let's say you want to claim, I improved team efficiency by 10%.
Okay, pretty standard claim.
Right. But doing that at a fully staffed, well-funded tech giant with a massive support team means one thing. Improving efficiency by 10% at a collapsing startup with zero budget, half the staff, and an angry customer base means something entirely different.
Exactly. The raw number is identical, but the context transforms the entire meaning of the achievement.
So the vault captures that context.
Yes, the vault holds that scale. It holds the stakes, the constraints, and the resources you actually had at your disposal. And crucially, the vault also holds failure.
Which people usually run away from on a resume.
They do. But in a healthy professional record, failure is simply evidence of learning. You probably won't put the raw details of a major project failure on your public resume, but you must keep it in your private vault so you don't lose the hard-won lesson.
That makes a lot of sense.
The vault also holds emerging work, skills that you are just starting to experiment with but haven't mastered. And it holds stale evidence skills you relied on heavily a decade ago that might need refreshing.
And keeping all this in a private, governed space really protects you against erasure. I mean, we spend so much time worrying about people inflating their resumes, but erasing your own value is just as dangerous.
It's arguably more common, too.
Right. Think about your own career, listener. How many times have you underclaimed your skills because no formal institution ever gave you a shiny badge for them?
Happens all the time.
Frontline workers, parents returning to the workforce, generalists who keep the wheels on the bus by doing a little bit of everything. They constantly erase their own value because they don't feel they have the proper corporate permission to claim it.
Exactly. And the private vault gives you a tangible place to document that you did the work. It prevents inflation on one end and erasure on the other. It gives you a grounded, factual foundation.
So you actually have proof you did the thing.
Yes. But here's the catch. Just having a folder full of raw evidence on your desktop won't tell you what to actually say to an employer. I mean, evidence does not interpret itself. You have to bridge the gap between the evidence you hold and the claim you make.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because if the vault is just your raw data, how do you operationalize it? I like to think about it like cooking.
Okay, I like a food analogy.
Your private evidence vault is your pantry. It is stocked with all your raw ingredients metrics, performance reviews, project notes, client feedback. But you can't just invite a dinner guest over, hand them a raw onion and a bag of flour, and expect them to believe you are a master chef.
No, they'd probably just leave.
Right. You need a recipe.
Yeah.
And in this system, that recipe is the claim map. It tells you what dish you can actually serve to an employer based entirely on the ingredients you actually have in your pantry.
The cooking analogy highlights the mechanism perfectly. The claim map is a structured process that forces you to look at your raw ingredients and ask a very disciplined question. What does this evidence make it reasonable for me to say?
It literally stops you from just copying whatever hollow buzzwords happen to be in the job description you're looking at.
Yes. Let's walk through how this actually works in practice. Someone might look at a senior job posting and immediately write on their resume, "I led enterprise transformation."
Sounds great. Very executive.
It does. But if they run that statement through their claim map, they have to confront their actual evidence. And if they are honest, maybe they didn't lead the entire enterprise transformation. Maybe the truer, slightly smaller claims are, "I coordinated implementation tasks across 3 departments, and I documented process changes for the frontline staff."
Which are still incredibly strong, valuable claims. They just happen to be accurate. They're actually proportional to the evidence.
Proportion is everything when establishing trust. And to help maintain that proportion, we use the concept of claim maturity. A lot of us fall into the trap of binary thinking with our skills.
Like, I'm either an expert or I know nothing at all.
Exactly. We think we are either absolute undisputed masters of a domain, or we are complete frauds who shouldn't even mention it. But if you look at your evidence, claims actually live on a spectrum.
I love this concept because it gives you permission to be a work in progress. Let's dig into that spectrum because knowing where your skills live completely changes how you talk about them in an interview.
For sure. The foundation of the spectrum is a verified claim. This is a claim supported by an external, undeniable fact, like a medical license, a university degree, or a published piece of research.
Very black and white.
It's incredibly solid, but as we discussed earlier, it only proves a fact, not necessarily complex problem solving. Moving up the spectrum, we find supported claims. This is where the vast majority of your real, impactful work lives.
Because most of what we do doesn't come with a certificate.
Yeah.
You might not have a formal diploma in crisis management, but you have 3 years of undocumented experience de-escalating angry clients.
Right.
You have the raw emails and the project postmortems in your vault to support it, even if there's no official badge.
Exactly. Then we encounter the emerging category. And this is perhaps the most humane part of the map. Let's say you are actively learning how to integrate new data analysis tools into your workflow.
You're figuring it out.
Right. You're absolutely not a senior data strategist yet, but you also aren't a novice anymore. You have emerging evidence of a new capability. By categorizing it as emerging, you don't have to hide your new skill, but you also avoid the anxiety of inflating it to an employer.
That relieves so much pressure.
Next on the spectrum is aspirational. This is a claim pointing toward your future. You want to move into team leadership, but you don't have the vault evidence for it quite yet.
And it is perfectly fine to name that ambition to a mentor or even an interviewer. You just have to be honest that it's aspirational. Treating an aspirational skill as if it were a supported skill is exactly how you destroy trust before you even get hired.
Exactly. Which leads us into the danger zones of the map. The first warning category is unsupported. This means the claim sounds fantastic on a resume, but when you rigorously check your vault, you simply lack the evidence to back it up.
So if they ask you about it, you're toast.
Basically, if a recruiter presses you on it, the conversation will collapse. You must soften the language or remove it entirely. Then we have stale claims. You might have been the absolute authority on a specific software system 10 years ago.
Oh, I've definitely been there.
Right. The evidence in your vault is very real, but time has decayed its relevance. Presenting it as a current mastery is just misleading.
And the final category, which I think is a massive, stressful blind spot for so many professionals, is unsafe. This means your claim is completely true. You have incredible evidence in your vault, but you literally cannot share it.
This is where the entire architecture faces its biggest stress test. If we are moving toward a hiring culture that demands more and more tangible evidence, show me your portfolio, upload your raw work samples, prove your metrics, what happens to basic confidentiality?
This is exactly what I was thinking. What if my absolute best work is covered by a massive, ironclad non-disclosure agreement?
Right, or what if you're a healthcare worker?
Yes. If my most powerful evidence of quick thinking involves sensitive patient data, I can't exactly upload a confidential patient history to a generative AI to spit out a resume bullet.
No, definitely not.
And I certainly can't slide a highly restricted internal strategy deck across the table to a recruiter just to prove I know how to run a product launch.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we run into a foundational ethical boundary. Professional proof must not become professional exposure. Portable proof cannot mean permanent, inescapable surveillance.
That would be a nightmare.
It would. A hiring system that demands you expose everything, your clients, your family crises, your internal company secrets just to be trusted, is an inherently extractive system. So, to protect the worker, the architecture introduces privacy tiers. Every single claim you map out requires a strict privacy boundary.
Let's look at how those tiers actually protect you in a real scenario. Some of the tiers are pretty obvious. You have public evidence, things like published articles, public podcasts, or open source code. You can blast those out to anyone.
Totally fine.
Then you have shareable evidence.
Yeah.
Maybe a sanitized project summary.
Mm-hmm.
You are comfortable sending directly to a recruiter over email, but you wouldn't necessarily post it on your public LinkedIn feed.
Makes sense.
Then you step down into redacted evidence, where you are basically blacking out client names and specific revenue numbers. But redaction is incredibly risky, isn't it?
Right.
Like you miss one hidden cell in a spreadsheet or forget to blur one logo, and you've suddenly breached a major contract.
Which is exactly why redaction is often insufficient and why the next tier is so vital. Metadata only. This is the primary mechanism for proving highly confidential work. With this tier, you do not save the artifact itself. You save a detailed description of the conditions of the work. You record the parameters.
But wait, metadata sounds incredibly dry. Are you saying a recruiter's going to hire me based on a bunch of generic tags instead of reading my actual brilliant strategy deck?
Well, they aren't hiring you based on the tags alone. The metadata is your anchor. It proves the shape and weight of the work without violating trust.
Okay, so how does that look?
So instead of illegally keeping a highly confidential corporate restructuring plan, you write a rigorous metadata note in your vault. Something like, led a regulated client implementation, managed a high-pressure 6-month timeline, coordinated weekly updates across legal, finance, and engineering departments.
Oh, I see.
You capture the undeniable meaning and complexity of the labor while entirely removing the risk to the client.
That is brilliant. It gives you the scaffolding for the claim without the exposure. And closely related to that is the interview memory tier. This is for evidence that is too nuanced or sensitive to ever write down on a document. But you prepare a bounded, safe narrative to share verbally behind closed doors in an interview.
Yes, exactly.
You decide in advance exactly where the boundaries are. You figure out what you can safely say and what you absolutely must leave out so you don't accidentally overshare when the adrenaline is pumping and you are super nervous in the hot seat.
And finally, we reach the bottom of the tiers. Private memory and do not upload. Some experiences are solely for you to understand your own professional growth. Some painful failures or deeply sensitive projects should never, ever be fed into an AI training set or uploaded to a cloud platform.
Keep it completely offline.
Exactly. You have to govern your own boundaries before the convenience of automated tools overrides your professional judgment.
But if I'm holding all this sensitive stuff back, like if I'm relying on metadata and bounded interview stories instead of raw documents, how does the employer actually know I'm not just a really good storyteller making it all up? That's where we have to bring humans back into the loop, right? The witnesses.
Yes, the human element is the ultimate verification here, but we have to be extraordinarily careful about how we define a witness. A witness in this architecture is not a generic reputation score.
We're not doing a Black Mirror thing?
No, we are not advocating for some dystopian social credit app where everyone rates their coworkers from 1 to 5 stars after every meeting. And it is also not a broad traditional reference letter that just says, she's a great team player and a joy to have in the office.
A witness is a much more targeted mechanism. It is tied to one specific claim on your map.
Right. You look at your claim map and you ask yourself, I am making a claim about my ability to de-escalate aggressive client negotiations. Who actually sat in the room and saw me do that?
You pinpoint someone?
You identify a specific colleague or manager. Then you reach out and ask for consent, not to be a general character witness, but to support that specific truth. Would you be willing to speak specifically to my client de-escalation skills based on that vendor dispute we handled last November?
Think about how much better that is for the witness, too. If a former colleague calls me and asks me to be a general reference, I honestly always panic a little bit.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is. I don't know what job they are applying for, I don't know what skills they want me to highlight, and I'm terrified of saying the wrong thing. But if they call and say, hey, can you confirm that I handled the back-end migration for that messy software rollout? I can say, yes, absolutely. I was there, I saw the constraints, and you delivered.
It's so much cleaner.
It makes the human context so much more powerful and manageable. And consent is absolutely mandatory here. Witnesses are human beings with their own boundaries, their own NDA constraints, and their own risks. They are not just data points for us to mine for credibility.
When you synthesize all of these elements together, when you curate a private evidence vault, you structure it with a claim map, evaluate it through maturity levels, protect it with privacy tiers, and verify it with specific human witnesses, you have achieved something profound.
You really have.
You have built a worker-owned evidence layer. You have constructed a governed foundation of truth that fundamentally belongs to you, not to an algorithm or a former employer.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now, thinking about your own career trajectory? It means that shifting your mindset from traditional signal management, just desperately trying to look good on a page and gaming the latest keyword scanner, to actual evidence governance, gives you your agency back.
It truly does.
You are no longer just reacting to a job posting, twisting yourself into knots to sound like whatever the algorithm happens to favor today. You are rendering a truthful, proportional, and highly protected version of your actual professional self. You are finally grounded in your own reality.
It allows you to actively participate in the meaning of your own record. You are no longer waiting for a hiring manager or an automated filter to tell you what your career means. You already know what it means because you have the evidence.
And that leads me to a final, somewhat provocative thought to leave you with today. If we actually commit to this, if we all successfully build these rich, highly governed, worker-owned evidence layers, will there come a day when we don't write resumes at all?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Think about it. What if, in the near future, your private evidence vault simply talks directly to an employer's AI? You set your strict privacy parameters, and your vault just negotiates your fit for a role behind the scenes.
Bypassing the whole song and dance.
Right. It instantly matches your verified claims and your metadata against the company's real requirements, completely bypassing the human-crafted surface layer. Is the traditional resume not just demoted today, but on a fast track to becoming completely extinct? We might not need to stress over editing the flashy movie trailer anymore, because the systems will just securely verify the director's cut.
It is a fascinating possibility for the future of work, and one that requires us to start building this architecture of trust right now, starting today.
Definitely something to mull over on your commute. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep building your vault, and we'll see you next time.